Hey everyone, welcome back to TBM Sports. Let's talk some NFL Thursday Night Football. We have a divisional game out there with the NFC West. We'll be breaking down the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Los Angeles Rams. I'll give you my best bets and plays and some things that I'm looking into for this game, as well as a lot of data figures through this video. So make sure you all like, comment, and subscribe down below. Let's get it. Let's run the board and look at what we're talking about here. We will use Outlier to break this all down. If you are looking at the numbers currently, you can see San Francisco clocking in at a plus 360 moneyline dog and getting 8.5 points now. We have seen that number climb quite a bit, okay? And what I mean by that is it did open up at a 1.5 point spread way back when, and then we've seen it pretty much around a touchdown or even 6.5. And then with all the injuries and inactives surrounding this game, we did see this number reach an 8.5 here in the market. Okay, so I will talk about that. It will be probably, in my opinion, one of the more prominent teaser legs as people look to take those 6 points, getting the Rams down to a field goal, and also pairing with some nice dance partners we have here on Sunday. But also the total sitting at 45.5. I will tell you guys a little bit about this matchup. The inactives really do tell the whole story, okay? Not only will Mac Jones be under center, they will have an absence there still. It's pretty much Mac Jones and CMC versus the world, okay? George Kittle still remains out. We do get, obviously, Jawan Jennings is out, Ricky Pearsall's out, and George Kittle still, like I said, on the IR. So it's a very, very tough way to handicap injuries. They do present a lot of opportunities for maybe newcomers into the fold to get some target shares, some extra snaps. So from a prop market, I don't mind it whatsoever, okay? But let's break down this game, and then we'll look into the props later on in this video. The 49ers, though, as we talk about them and the Rams respectively, probably will surprise you guys to know that the 49ers are a top 5 offensive team in terms of yardages thus far. Both of these teams coming into this game 3-1. The 49ers are 2-2 ATS, and the Rams 3-1 ATS as well. So the other thing to kind of get into with this handicap is we look at that yardage, right? And that's why you can't look at offense just with one lens. You got to look at total offense, okay? When we talk about the points scored, that number does drop quite a bit, okay? So it's kind of an inverse relationship. Yeah, we're putting up a lot of yards, but we're not putting points on the board, okay? And that's how I see this basically playing out. I think the Rams, low-key, may be one of my, not anymore, but I think they are kind of in strong consideration, not just for Super Bowl consideration in a crowded NFC, but also we could talk Puka Nacua, we could talk Matthew Stafford, MVP consideration, okay? I think that's something that has to be said, and we'll talk about some of Nakua's stats as we get deeper into this as well, okay? But that's how I'm handicapping the game. I'm staying away from the side. It's out of reach as it looks. Anything above a 7 is pretty much, it's 49ers or pass. I won't be on it. It's an ugly game. If you do want to pair that, which I probably will do, I will probably take a piece of one of the games there on Sunday within the Rams, taking them 6 points down to a 2.5. Do not lay more than minus 130 for a 6-point teaser. That's insane, okay? Over the long haul, you will be a losing better doing so, okay? But there's a lot of great opportunities and dance partners that we can get into a 2-leg teaser on the weekend, okay? That's how I'm playing it, though. From that standpoint, from the total, I am going to have an official best bet on the 45.5. Primetime unders, let it rain. I think that when we have the offensive inefficiencies, that's something to be said about San Fran, also on a short week to kind of figure this all out, okay? Going against a stifling Rams defense, and I think that might be a little bit of a sleeper thing there, as both of these clubs are essentially on defense a top 10 unit respectively. So that's kind of why I like the under, okay? The only thing that does scare me a little bit is if we get a Mac Jones game filled with turnovers and special teams mishaps that can obviously result into points. But pretty much, if you look at this, top 10 offenses going against top 10 defenses, in terms of yards allowed, I think this one will set up for a nice little under, as I do think for prime time, for whatever reason, there's more clock running. You think it'd be the opposite, right? Players would show out on offense, and we would fill those stat lines, which does happen every once in a while. But more times than not, we usually do go under that total. This total has fell from the 47 down to 47.5, I should say, down to a 45.5 number that we see currently. I still like it at 45.5 at -110. That will be one of my official best bets, and kind of rocking with that. I looked into Rams team total. I'm not going to get involved with that, but I will have an official play with the 45.5. Straight up and taking the under, and then also like I said, we're gonna get the Rams down 6 points in a 2-leg teaser over the weekend. Okay, next bet that we will talk about is some of the props that I am looking at, and we'll start off with touchdowns. Okay, the one thing I'll tell you guys is this man right here, Davante Adams, has scored a touchdown in 3 of the 4 games this season, and I think this does continue. The only thing about it though is that +115. Is this bettable? Okay. And it's funny to look back at Davante Adams over his last 10 games, dating back into a different squad, 2024. Let's just call it what it is. He scored 9 touchdowns in his last 10 games. The one thing, though, about San Francisco is, like I said, they play great defense. And versus wide receivers, they give up the 3rd fewest touchdowns against the wideout position. So I am going to be staying away from the Rams wide receivers from a prop perspective. I know a lot of people are going to look at the star-studded names. Davante Adams, we get Puka Nacua, and so on and so forth. No, we're going to stay away. Sometimes, you can be wrong, but I guarantee you that if I pass on something, I will never lose a bet, okay? Maybe potential winnings, but I will never lose a bet, okay? I'm not going to be talking about his props in terms of receptions and in that market, but I do want to kind of touch upon another player from a touchdown standpoint, and that's where we're going to look into the running back that has kind of had his workload decreased a little bit, and it does kind of catch my eye as I'm a big fan, as you guys all know. I am a Notre Dame fan, so I got to see the man a lot in action in South Bend, and pound for pound, probably the toughest player in the NFL, for my opinion. And we'll talk about Kyren Williams once I can find his name. I apologize that for whatever reason, I'm having trouble. And here we can find it right here. This is the one thing that did catch my eye. Okay, he's only had 1 touchdown in his last 3 games. Other thing about it is it's -180. That just seems shockingly high. If we look at the 49ers defense as well, they give up the 5th fewest touchdowns to the running back position. Like I said, top 10 defense. The one thing that I will go into within Kyren Williams, and if you do want to do like a crazy bet, the over 1.5 touchdowns. I know Corum does take away some of those goal line opportunities. Also, kind of just the mindset that we're looking at total carries, maybe 15, 16, 17 on average. Corum does eat into that. But I will say on prime time, for whatever reason, he gets fed a little bit more. So I do think Kyren Williams will get into that 18-plus carry load, workload, if you will. And, not too shabby if we get into one of those kind of goal line situations. All it takes is just 2 chances by the goal line, and they're going to Kyren Williams. So I don't mind the over 1.5 plus 275. That just seems like a little bit too much value to pass up. So I do kind of not mind a little, 0.3 unit sprinkle or some kind of percentage play on Kyren Williams over 1.5 touchdowns, because if that opening drive does go into the end zone and he does get the first touchdown, you're going to find that once again, the over 1.5 will probably be priced in the minus category for odds. Okay, so just a little food for thought. I'm not going to official bet that, make that an official play, but that's kind of where I'm at within that regard. Okay, the next bet I want to look into, and this is going to be a couple ones that do catch my eye. Christian McCaffrey. We talked about all the inactives. You could talk about Juwan Jennings, also the likes of Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle. Okay, a lot of their key weapons. It's going to make it very hard for Mac Jones. The only thing that does scare me in this game is that if the Rams, they're flying high, they're 3-1. If they kind of let off the gas pedal a little bit in division, doesn't happen too often, but I would not be shocked if it, was a little bit closer than expected in the first half, and that's kind of why I'm on the under. But with Christian McCaffrey, the thought of a reception is definitely a play that I would look into. If you look at the opposing ranks, for the running back position for LA giving up, its receptions allowed. They're second in the NFL, allowing only 3.2 receptions to the running back position in a game script against the Cardinals, which may be a little bit closer to what we see on Thursday night. 16-15, the 49ers won by a late field goal. And that was a game where, as you look at the Cardinals, they do give up a ton to the running back in terms of receptions. And that's kind of where I lend towards this category being maybe from a score perspective, they won't be playing catch up as much. If it is a lower scoring game, maybe more traditional workload. And 7 receptions is quite a bit, even for CMC, okay? And even last week against an opponent, 23rd in receptions allowed, okay, he only had 6. And that's kind of how I look at the target share here. And that's something that I did want to point out, because everybody does gravitate towards big name star players prop wise. I personally go a little bit of both, but more so I look for those strange players. Something I like to deploy within my NBA betting a lot as well. But that's kind of what we're talking about. And I'm staying away from this one. There's too much variance, right? It's a 50-50 proposition. There's no value at 6.5. 5.5, it's an auto play. I'd even lay some juice. But also, if you talk about the 11 targets, 15 targets, and then dating back to New Orleans, where they didn't really need to do much, that was where you had 7 targets, but the percentage definitely has went up. 67 and 55% of the receptions and targets go to Christian McCaffrey. So keep that in mind. He's definitely going to get the looks out of the backfield, but at 6.5 at a -120 price, I see it happening. It's just a little too steep for my blood if that's what we're going to play. And also, like I talked about the inactives for San Francisco, I'm not willing to go out on a ledge and just start betting San Francisco offensive player props, okay? Because there is a very strong likelihood that we could get a Rams blowout, and then next thing you know, it's not even garbage points, it's backups, okay? So that's just in the back of my head and why I'm staying away from it, but I wanted to talk about it because I know you guys are all going to be looking at it. But the 149er that we are going to bet, and this is going to be kind of that safety valve for Mac Jones as we look at Jake Tonges. And if it's Tonges, whatever you want to call it, apologies, as long as it cashes a ticket, we can call it whatever we want. But taking Jake here over 24.5 receiving yards, this number did settle down a little bit. And as we look into some of the line movement, if we go a little bit deeper, you can see kind of where we were at. This is the line movement brought to you by Outlier. We've seen the moves throughout the day. This got up as high as an opening of 30.5, and it has ticked down pretty much to where we are at right now at 24.5. So if you are liking that, there's a reason probably why it's going down. And I just think this is one where we saw 58 yards last week against Jacksonville. It's a decent plus matchup at 18th, so a little bit better than middle of the pack. So why not? Let's go Jake Tonges over 24.5 at -121 on DK. He had 21 against Arizona, which is a very similar script, and also 31 against New Orleans. Okay, so he's going to get some grabs. I don't want to play the receptions. That's always my biggest Achilles heel, is deciding receptions versus yardages for tight ends. I normally gravitate towards receptions, full disclosure, okay? But for me, guys, I'm not going to be doing it here with him because I do think that if we look into the receptions, and more so, it usually does show me the target depth on this. But nonetheless, it's not going to matter here. I think he's going to be a dump off. He's going to be a valve, safety valve, an outlet for Mac Jones. And if you look back into the last 19 games, which I know it was in a backup role, failing to exceed 3.5 receptions in 18 of his last 19. So can't really put that into the equation. Sometimes you get data points misconstrued, and that's exactly what it is. As we look into 2024, he had 0. So that's pretty easy to basically get skunked in that regard, okay? So as we talk about 2025, the 4 games he has played in, he's had 3, 4, 2, and 3 respectively, and going over 3.5. Probably happens. I like it at plus 148. I'm not going to lie about that. I don't mind some plus money value, but I do think this is better spent within the likes of the reception yards, and I just think that's the better play, and that's definitely going to be on my card as one of my best bets. So we're going to be taking that. Okay, so I think this one will settle into the 20s. You're probably going to get upwards of 30 plus passing attempts for Mac Jones, which is kind of crazy to talk about. But we'll kind of check that one out here before we let you guys go, because that is something that does interest me a little bit as well. And you're going to find that very hard to find, I think. Okay. But I will pull it up here. Pass it. Why are they pulling up Brock Purdy with his name? Okay. Give me 1 second. Wasn't planning on doing this, so I will do it anyways. That's where we're going to look into the passing attempts. And this is a lot of the great stuff that you can find with Outlier. 32.5, though, at -110. Pretty much right on the money. I think he's going to be upwards of 30 plus. They got it right exactly where I would probably put it. Over 30 with a shade towards 30 versus 40. If this was over if this was 30.5, I would take the over. If this was 35 or north, I would take the under. But I do think that this is right on the money, so we're not going to be playing this prop. But I wanted to look it up kind of on the fly because I do think it is relevant when you put together, okay, how many attempts are there going to be? How much food is going to be there to go around to CMC if he catches 7? And then also, you kind of have to figure out where the other completions are going to go because realistically, 21.5, that's accounting for a lot of running back grabs. So putting together the equation, it all has to compute, right? And that's going to be not a lot of mouths to feed, but the same mouths. And I think that's kind of why we're going to back tight ends and running backs for the Mac Jones completion. So we talked about it, and Tonges is the way that I would go in that regard. Okay, so that's where I'm at. Appreciate you guys breaking it down with me here and sticking around to the end of the video. Here's my quick recap. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so now. But the best bets that we are going to have, we're going over 24.5 with Jake Tonges in receiving yards. That's at a -120 price. Also, we're going to take a under 45.5 bet at -110. And then we will use the Rams in a 6-point teaser leg. Take him down 6 points. Find your best dance partner, okay? There's plenty of options here for the NFL Sunday. But, something I like to do within kind of turning over the Thursday night games, Saturday night games, if we get them even Sunday night into Monday night, so on and so forth. It's a great way to add a lot of value within these 2-leg teasers. And it's something where if they do get hit enough, they actually do impact the numbers on game day when we have that full Sunday. So if there's a lot of liability, teaser exposure, some of that can trickle down into the actual number, irregardless of what individual and the so-called sharks and sharp bettors out there in the market, how they can move it. So that's my take. That's what I'm doing. Those are going to be kind of my 3 plays. I won't necessarily share my teaser dance partner in this video. I will probably post something on Discord, what I actually end up playing. And I will do that for you guys. And I don't really think, guys, I know I throw those Discord parlays out there just for fun, and we have a good time with that. Some of them cash, some of them don't. But this game is not one that, if it wasn't the Thursday night game, I would not be getting involved from a prop perspective, just being honest. And I didn't even talk about the Puka Nacua numbers, but I do think it is a little noteworthy to get into his rushing and receiving category. If that's how you're going to bet it, that's where I would look for in that metric. So appreciate you guys as always. Can't do without you. I do appreciate all my returning subscribers. Smash the like, leave a comment. Thank you all for tuning in. Good luck. Let's cash some tickets, and we'll see you guys all in the next video. Cheers.